This video is going to review the virtual animal class and then show how our mammal and our reptile classes are constructed from that. So just as a little bit of a review and refresher from the last video, the things that we changed were we included an enumerated type. We changed the destructor to be a virtual destructor. We changed getInfo to be a virtual method. And we changed and created a virtual method for getting the animal type. And we're going to have two animal types. They are mammal and reptile. And those are designated back here in animal type. So when we say get animal type, or we make that, we're returning either a 0 for mammal or a 1 for reptile. The .cpp for animal really did not change too much if we take a look at it. The virtual keywords are on the header files, and so the constructor here looks the same. Get name, get weight, get food, set name, set weight. Those are all the same. So now down here, feeding the animal is the same. getInfo is the same, and the destructor is the same. Please notice on this one we did put some code in the destructor, so when the code is actually executed, you're going to be able to see the destructor running, so to speak. Okay. Normally we would not put code inside the destructor, so for your final project you would just have nothing inside the destructor, but we put a count statement in there so you guys could see what was going on. If we take a look at the mammal header file now, there's not a lot that changes in mammal now. If we take a look, we have a mammal constructor, and it's going to input a name and a weight, and we have a destructor. It does not have to be virtual. We have a getInfo method, and we now have declared animal type and getAnimal type. So this is going to return an animal type. It's typed in all capitals because remember that's that enumerated animal type, and it says enum from animal, and so you are returning an animal type. And so it's going to return a 0 or a 1. 0 for a mammal, I think, and 1 for a reptile. And then you have one local variable here, which is going to be an animal type. And so again, that comes from our enumerated data type back here in the animal class. So it's inheriting that from the animal class. Your mammal.cpp, if we take a look at that, is going to be pretty much the same that we had before. I'm going to start at the bottom. We put in a comment into the destructor so you could actually see it destructing the mammal object. Again, when you code for your semester project, you will comment that out because we don't normally put code or anything inside our destructor. So you would just comment that out. And my machine's running a little slow. I added the comment statements, but it's not taking it. You'll see those pop up here in a minute. The getAnimal type is just returning an animal type. Remember, that's that local variable that we just declared. That was a change. Our getInfo doesn't change. We are going to call the superclass animal getInfo. And from our base class, let's take a look at the constructor. Our constructor, when we construct a mammal, is going to bring in a name and a weight. But then right here, this is calling the superclass. So in the superclass, I'm going to just send in the name and the weight to the superclass, and then I'm also going to set animal type. And the animal in this one is going to be a mammal. So that's something a little bit new. So we're not only calling the constructor in the base class, we are setting the animal type here in this constructor. And that's for our mammal class. The reptile class is going to be very, very similar. If I go back to mammal.h just for a second, you'll see here that the constructor looks just like it normally would. And that constructor goes back to the animal class constructor right here, where it sets up our name and our weight. And so the animal.cpp, if we take a look at the constructor, sets name, weight, and total food, if we were to go back and take a look at that as well. And so when you create the mammal here, and we look at the mammal.cpp, when they call that constructor, it's going back to the base class constructor. It's going back to the animal constructor. All right, reptile is going to be very similar. So I look at reptile.h, we have a constructor, we have the destructor, we have a virtual void getInfo, We'll take a look at that. Again, you have animal type, and you have two local variables now, temperature and animal type. And remember that get animal type is just going to return whether it's a reptile or a mammal. Our implementation for reptile, very similar to mammal. We have our constructor where we are calling, we're sending in a name, a weight, and a temperature. We call our base class constructor for animal, and it only takes name and weight. So we're going to use name and weight from that. But then we're going to use our local constructor here and set animal type to be reptile and temperature to be temp. This is right here. I didn't explain this in the last one very well, but this is another way to set those local variables. And so that comma and followed by these types is just setting those local variables for this particular reptile. So it's setting temperature to temp and animal type to reptile. So that's going to be a 1. Our get info does not change. Temperature does not change. Getting the animal type is new. We have to add that in. And then we have, again, a destructor that has some comments in it. So you can see when we run the destructor, you're going to be able to see the code that it is actually destructing a type of animal. I'm going to see if I can get the code to run here fairly quickly. It may or may not work because my machine is running kind of slow. And see if you can get some output. So all of this code is going to be available on course sites, so you're going to be able to see that. I know I'm talking through it kind of fast. The main things to look at and study would be these constructors, and then look for anything that would be this where we're adding this animal type and getting the animal type. And so if I look at my reptile.h, remember there were two local variables that we had here, temperature and animal type. And the reptile.cpp, those two variables are being set right here. So this is a way to actually set those local variables. That's kind of different, a little bit new. It's still taking a while to load. We will see if we can get the output to pop up in a couple minutes. I'll pause it until we can get that to execute. Here's the output screen for running the zoo with the virtual methods. And you can see that it's the same as what we had before. I'm going to go ahead and feed Enigma and 3 pounds of food. But what I want you to do is to really look at this report. And it reports out the different animal types, type 0, type 1. You guys can go ahead and answer the door. And reptile zoo, reptile, mammal, and total zoo food. But then what I really want you to pay attention to here is the destructing part. So if you notice, when a mammal gets destructed, then an animal also gets destructed. When a reptile gets destructed, an animal also gets destructed. So that superclass animal gets destructed at the same time that the reptile gets destructed. That will wrap up this video working on polymorphism. We will take a look at the driver next and how you can incorporate pointers into the program.